and you're good to go. So let me run this demo with auto adjusting. And this isn't that exciting, but okay. So now we've got, this is the auto adjusting mode. Now I can drag it, and it may lag a little bit when you're dragging, but as you can see, no matter what I do, it stays abutted and the lines extend. Also, I can flip into full screen mode, and now the lines extend, it's in the corners. This is more of the behavior that I was trying to achieve in my demo.
But the important point there is that it had to recalculate in order to make the adjustments for all that stuff.
Yes. So okay. So let me make a clear point. You said that, and that is correct. SSK has a bunch of shorthand notations: left, right, top, bottom, center X, center Y, and SSK uses these throughout all the builder functions and the advanced functions and all that. So if you care about that, then they need to be updated, because otherwise SSK will start to misbehave. Likewise, if you're using those notations from SSK in your code, you want SSK to rediscover it if you care about resizing. On the other hand, if you're not using SSK at all, or you don't care about SSK's values, Corona automatically rediscovers all these values every time resizing is done. It updates every frame, so the values are always correct. So there's a way for you, using pure Corona values, to discover the left side of the screen, the right side of the screen, etc., etc. So that stuff is, it's not like I'm doing something groundbreaking here. All I'm doing is making sure that it gets reflected if I choose to reflect it into my app development. Let me get out of here. Okay, I'm going to run us out of time here, and there's something cool that I want to show you. But before I do that, and this is the cool thing, is it's a big kudos to Jason Schroeder. He told me he couldn't be on the show, and I said that's too bad, because I got something cool, and it's a surprise kind of for you. It's something he did that made this possible, which is super awesome. And for me, it's super awesome, and I think other people are going to find it very awesome too. But before we get there, let's talk about that resizing bit. This is main Lua. This is the file that did the drawing of the squares and the crosshatch. And it's got a function in here called draw test. Draw test draws some squares and some lines. And the first time we run it, it executes draw test. But then I also added an event listener for the resize event. And so what that does is every time the screen is resized, it redraws this content. And as we can see here, the first thing it does is destroy all the old content, and then it just starts drawing it again. Now, remember what I said earlier. Only in the case where it makes sense to redraw the whole screen would we do this. If we're in the middle of a game, it does not make sense to redraw the whole screen. Instead, we're going to have to handle this differently. We're going to have to either not allow resizing, or we're going to have our elements in the game be aware of resizing and be smart enough to do something without destroying the entire game world every time they resize. This is kind of an advanced topic, something we'll talk about in this series, but we're going to save it for later. We're going to come back to it, because I'll make you an example so that people can understand clearly that destroying the live state of a game to handle resizing is not the way to go. Instead, you want to get smarter about it. So let me show the cool bit. Before I say that, though, I encourage people to take this. It's a very simple project. It's just got a few files in it. You can stay out of SSK. You can stay out of the scripts folder. Yep. And you can just look at these three files here. I'm sorry, build settings, config, and main. You can ignore the image and the icon. The icon I haven't got quite working. You're supposed to be able to create a icon for your game, but I think that it's only used when you do the final packaging, which I haven't done. So I am not 100% clear on how the icon works, so I'm not really discussing it today, other than to say that yes, you can create a custom icon for your game. So you can have a cool icon like Corona does. So let's go run the other example, and I'm not going to run it in the simulator. I'm going to go No, I actually I have to. Let's run it in the windowed version first. So there's another project in here called Exploration. Now in this folder, it's going to have build settings, config, main Lua, and then it's going to have a folder called ideas. Now in ideas are going to be a bunch of different explored concepts for our game, where I've either talked about something, or I've added some additional mechanics, or I've played with 2 different versions of the mechanics until we get settled in on how we want this game to work. So as we go along in our talk, there'll be more and more ideas in here. And when you run this, the application will come up and look like this. It'll come up to a menu, and you'll be able to click a button to run that version of the idea. So for example, today we're going to talk about idea 1 and 2 very briefly. And for all time, this will always be accessible. You'll be able to go back and run the original code that we talked about today. Once we get down to idea, 438, or hopefully only like maybe 10, we'll have settled enough on mechanics, and we'll take this whole discussion over to the game folder, where we'll start to polish it and make it better and better. So what do you see in here? Some of the things that this comes with, it comes with a simple frame rate meter. It also comes with a little meter that shows you how much memory is being used, both main memory and texture memory. And the piece de resistance, thank you very much to Jason. You may recall that Jason showed us his Twitter plugin some time ago. And he had this cool feature where he would pop up a widget window, and it would come sliding into the screen. And then he would print out the results of whatever Twitter thing he just did. Well, if you press Control L, it will fly in a version. I took his code and I messed with it and changed it and amended it. And basically what this is a live log of everything that gets displayed in the console is now available on the desktop. And yes, before you ask, this will also work on Android devices and on iOS, but as yet, I've given you no way to launch it. So obviously there's no keyboard on an iOS device, so no physical keyboard attached, so there's no way to hit Control L to launch it. However, theoretically, you could attach that launch command to a button or something on the screen and then launch it that way. And then you can scroll through your console output. And some things about this that are important to know is that it's Control L to open and close. You Control L and it closes. When you open it, you can mash Control L, and because it's got that little animation, there's a 2-second period during which you're not able to close it right away. So if I Control L and Control L right away, it doesn't close. But now that I've been talking and Control L again, it will close. So if you're mashing Control L, it's not going to open, close, open, close, open, close. It's got a little piece of safety code in there just to keep you from doing that. And it's not necessary so much as the code that I took from him wasn't currently resistant. It needed a little bit of period of time to finish and transition. So I just said, okay, I'll just lock you out of closing it for 2 seconds. The other thing is your log could get kind of long. Like right now, it's not that long. If you want to clear the log, and this would be especially important if you used it on Android or iOS, you hit Control-Shift-L, and now when we open the log, you should have a little message that says Cleared Logger, and now all the old messages are gone, and it'll only be future messages that will show up. For example, if we resize and Control-L, now we see that the resize debug output came out. So
at some point, are you saying at some point you're going to make this available to where you could actually run it on the device and be able to access the log?
Yeah, I'm strongly considering writing a variation on this that would be either a plugin or a downloadable module that will run on any device. And what I'm considering doing is giving the mobile version the ability to float a button or to attach it to like a device shake. So So you can shake your device and it will open the log. That way, people who don't like using Logcat can also just use this.